Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today we are diving into the post-apocalypse, trying to survive and thrive even in Waste Nights 2nd edition. Waste Nights here is a story-driven adventure survival game in which you are going to be picking a scenario, most of them cooperative, a couple of them competitive, and trying to go through that scenario, following the story points, reading from a book of stories, the book of tales, entries about what you're discovering, what you're finding out there, traveling, finding junk, repairing that junk, going on, whatever the game requires you to do, trying to ultimately win. The game is a pretty big, sprawling kind of game. I'm going to be showing you an overview here, glossing over many things, I'm sure, but generally trying to give you an idea of how it works. And then we're going to come back up here, and I'll tell you what I think of it. So here we go. To set up the game, the first thing you're going to need to do is pick a scenario. For example, Awakening here. Then every player is going to be picking a character. You'll have your character sheet and a miniature to represent you on the board with many different stats there. You're also going to have a vehicle and some starting equipment. For example, a couple of pieces of equipment here that you'll be holding, offensive things, maybe some armor there. So you'll begin with some of these things. You are going to be reading through some flavor text and story setup here and be given some choices. You are going to be bouncing back and forth between this scenario book and the book of tales here that has many different written entries that you're going to be reading from. And it will again give you the story, some options, some challenges, tests, things like that. So for example, right here in this one, at the very end of reading this setup, you'll be making a choice. If you make this one, you'll be reading entry number 1 in that book of tales. If you read this one, you'll be reading entry 217. And you go from there. And then perhaps once that's done, you will turn to this part of this scenario, giving you, this looking for parts scenario, going through that. Eventually, this will end, and you'll go perhaps over here, perhaps somewhere else on one of these. So this is going to be your roadmap to the game. So the things you are doing in the game, large scale, you really don't know. It's based on whatever that scenario says. The things you are doing turn to turn, well, those are right here. So every night, every player is going to have a turn, and on those turns you get 2 actions, 2 different actions. Your options are move, camp, explore, city action. You can take a plot action if the book gives you one, and then special actions if anything gives you one. Perhaps some piece of equipment, perhaps the book itself, something might give you a special action. So very, very briefly, I'll go through these. So the move action is going to allow you to traverse this landscape. You'll be somewhere on the map here, and if you choose to move, you are going to use your vehicle's speed, which is listed right here, and perhaps some fuel as well. You can choose to spend fuel you are storing on your vehicle to further that, equal to whatever it says right there, and then you'll move through the landscape. There is a breakdown here of how many movement points it takes to enter specific land types, which is also printed up there at the top of the map. So you'll move around, you'll go through some symbols, taking some negative effects as you traverse the landscape. Once you are done moving, you are going to draw a card from a location that matches where you ended. So for example, if I ended on this sand, I will draw a card from this deck here and deal with something. For example, I might have to fight these guys. And there will be dice rolling and fighting and all of that, using my weapons, using my guns ability plus a weapon. Maybe I'll spend some ammo. If I happen to have some ammunition, I can spend it on that to roll dice against them, ideally take them out. All right? So that's move. A camp action is going to allow you to repair your equipment, because some equipment might break and you flip it over to the broken side. So you can repair equipment and you can heal as well, as long as you have meds to heal. If you spend these, you'll be able to heal some wounds you have taken. The explore action allows you to use your exploration value to find things out there in the wasteland. You would draw a card from this deck, check the land type you're on. For example, desert would be this one here. This one says I would get 1 piece of equipment broken. and 1 wound. If I don't like it, though, I could draw again up to my exploration number, but I take the last one I reveal. So that one I don't like, I flip this one. This one says I take 1 fuel or 1 well or ammo, but then my vehicle takes 1 damage. Okay, I'll take that. And so I would gather my resources, and I'd discard these cards here. So that is the Explorer. A city action can only happen on a city. So let's go ahead and move these things out of the way here so I can show you how that works. You'll see around the map there are various different location types. Many of them, again, are just sort of the wasteland out here with different types. There's even these craters that you cannot normally cross into. But then there's a few cities, 6 to be exact, spread around the map. And those are these. They also have an associated land type. So to enter it will cost you some movement points. But then while you're on a city, there's one new action available to you. And that action is to visit different shops. You get to visit 2 of them. You can go to a quack doctor and heal up. You can go to a garage, repair your vehicle. You can go to a workshop and fix your things that are broken without having to repair them out while you're camping. And then you can also barter. To barter entails grabbing this deck of cards here, drawing some of them, so just revealing some of these, and then trading for these things based on their barter value and the things you are holding. You can give up things you have to barter for other things. You can even spend your meds or your ammo to gain these things, or the reverse. You could give up, say, this knife and gain some meds. Everything has a value associated with it, so you can choose to make whatever trade you want to, and once you're done, anything you didn't take here, well, that simply gets discarded. So that is your city action, which again, you can only do while you're in a city. And then the last 2, like I said, are the plot and the special actions. Those will be listed out for you in places such as the storybook here, the scenario book. So once you're done doing that, then the other players will do that. And then normally there will be some clicking down of time or clicking up of time based on what the scenario says, and you move on to the next round. So that's the general flow. A big part of the game is combat, and combat, like I said, will require that you roll some dice. And so, for example, if I am attacking someone and I'm going to go ahead and use a ranged weapon, I need to have the ammo. I'm going to roll dice. The gun itself will list some dice, in this case 1 white, 1 green, and then I have some innate stat in that, also 1 white, 1 green. I would roll all these, and I would check for hits. So right now, this is actually what I rolled. Pretty bad roll there. There's not normally any dice mitigation in this. Some things might let you do it, but normally what you got is what you got. This is terrible. I would do quite badly. So 2 hits is what I got. There's some other symbols that might show up, such as that one, that if a weapon or something says it means something, then it would. For example, the sawn-off shotgun here says that if I roll that, I deal 2 damage. So pretty good. But if I obtained any of them, this weapon is going to break, which means I would flip it over. It still works, but I want to repair it so I get better dice and things like that. So there you go. That's what you're doing in the game. There's quite a few other things as you traverse the landscape. You might be drawing tokens from this bag that are going to be pretty bad things, damage to your car, enemies roll extra dice against you, a blue die, which is very bad, that sort of thing. Very punishing, generally speaking. But ultimately, you are trying to push that story along, trying to achieve whatever the objective is that the story sets out for you. So there you go. That's in broad strokes what's going on in the game. Let's go ahead and go back up top. I am a massive, massive fan of the theme and the setting here in Waste Nights. I love post-apocalyptic stuff. I like the theme. I like the Mad Maxian, trappings here. Of course, it's Australia, so that goes hand in hand with Mad Max. This is a game that, to put it simply, I wanted to adore. Had just a true fire for wanting to just love this game, and I don't. I like it, But I find myself somewhat disappointed in what the game could be, in what I want it to be, and kind of what it ends up being. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about it, starting from the top and starting from a couple of things I think are fantastic, and that is the theme and the setting here. It's the setting. What's happening in the game is absolutely epic, completely immersive. I love this world. It's a fully realized place that is brought to life through the writing, through the characters and the story, incredibly well. So I have no complaints when it comes to that aspect of it. I think they did a really good job not making any part of this game feel generic. It all has really well-drawn characters in the writing and the story, and it's simply very immersive for me. The aesthetics I also think are very good. The game has pretty awesome artwork. I think the artwork is consistently good in the game. Iconography is pretty good in the game as well. The tokens and so forth are fine, a little on the thin side, but not problematic. So the whole thing from a production point of view, besides a little quality control, which I'll talk about in ease of play mostly, but, besides those kinds of things, which I know are always very difficult to do when a game is this big, has this many cards and so forth, artwork and production are very good. The replay value, I think, is fine. The game is, like I said, scenario-driven. You have a good amount, and the scenarios are nicely replayable. You'll make some big choices that will deviate the scenario. So you can run through every one of them at least twice with a couple of big changes through them. But you can keep coming back to them, of course. Yes, the main story points, the general beats of the story will be the same after you've played a few times. But of course, you're encountering things at a different rate. You're going to different places, having different, moments. So the smaller moments in between the bigger ones will be different. I think the replayability is fine. Would I have liked more replayability? Yes. There's supposed to be a sort of sandboxier mode coming for this game that is not out. Something that makes the game less sort of locked into a scenario. But we'll see. That's not out. That hasn't come out. The game arc is one of my big issues with the game. And again, I wanted to love it, but the game arc is one of the things that certainly hurts it for me. I think the game is very long. I do think it is too long. Many of the scenarios simply take too long to play out. They have listed times, with the longest one being 5 hours, but I would say all of these times listed in the book are very conservative. A scenario that is 3 hours, as per the book, you can expect to play, I think, longer than that, considerably longer, especially early on. So, you're looking at maybe 5 hours for that one. So yes, I wish that there were perhaps more scenarios that were then shorter. That would have been a boon for me. That would have been really helpful to give me more variety, but also more digestible sessions. I do not like this idea of having to invest so much time into one big blast of fun. If they were shorter, for me anyway, that would be helpful. And again, the times listed just don't seem to correlate to how long the game actually takes, in my experience. There's also, talking about the game arc, not a smooth progression of difficulty throughout the game. And I'll talk about this more when I talk about luck. But the game can have wild difficulty spikes. You are drawing from, after every move, like I said, you draw a card from one of these decks that matches the landscape in which you end it. And you'll find all sorts of things in there. So you could have, after your very first turn, you move through some landscapes, draw a card, and it's a massive baddie that you have absolutely no chance of taking down. They're going to beat you up. There's no running away. You're going to roll dice against it, whatever meager dice you have. You're probably not going to put even a little dent in them. Damage does not stick around. You do part ways with them after a single round of combat, but you're going to walk away battered and bruised, and then get stuck into having to spend a bunch of time to heal and so forth. There is a certain downward spiral feeling to the game that if you are particularly unlucky at the beginning, you get caught up in that for a while, if not for, most of the game. So not a smooth progression, that doesn't, there's no seeding a deck with part A, the easier characters, and then part B. There's none of that. It's just, here's a bunch of stuff. Good luck. We hope you come out okay at the other side. It seems to put that survival idea forward. And the exploration and the adventure can sometimes take a back seat to that, which is unfortunate. It feels a little too punishing. The ease of play. I think the game is nicely structured. I do think the writing could be a little bit better. I think the book here, the Book of Tales, is pretty good. There's some good language in here. It's fairly well written. It could be better. The English is a little messy. The sentence structure is a little messy. You can kind of feel that this is not from a native English speaker. It's not bad. I've definitely read worse. It just could be much better, I think. The whole thing could be streamlined some. I think the rulebook is pretty good. There are some omissions in there, and perhaps an FAQ that would have helped included in there. It's mostly there, but it's going to require some work on your end to really, sort of sand down some rough edges that you are going to come across, okay? Lastly, tactics, luck, strategy does get another thumbs down for me. I think the game just has tremendous amounts of luck. It's just too lucky. And this is the kind of game, and this seems to be not maybe the consensus, but certainly not an isolated idea, that this is the kind of game that could benefit from some house ruling. And it's something I'm interested in doing myself because the world is so captivating. It's such a good-looking game. I want to enjoy these stories. I want to go back in and then try it again. But I want to tighten up some loose bolts in this machinery. So there's just a lot of luck. There's not a lot of luck mitigation in the rolling. The game is very punishing, like I said. Sometimes you just want to be allowed to have a little more fun in this one. And the game seems hell-bent on not really giving you a lot of wiggle room to do that. They put a very big time pressure on you in most of the scenarios. They're like, you have this many turns to do this. Don't mess around. Don't look around and explore and have fun enjoying our writing in this world. Do what you need to do. You came across some giant monstrosity? Too bad. Now you need to waste a few actions just healing up and bartering for things and trying to patch yourself up and limp to the finish line. Again, that survival is very forward in this game. So having said all of that, some very high highs for me in wanting to play this game. That remains very high. And yet, I have some big issues with this game that, yes, perhaps I'll be able to iron out if I throw some house ruling at it, but I don't want to have to do that. I think I will in this game because my desire to enjoy the game surpasses my usual resistance to house ruling, but I wish it was a little bit tighter out of the box. So having said all of that, I think my score and what I think of it and what you walk away thinking of it does depend on how you feel about many of these things. Are you content to house rule? And sort of, it's your game, shape it up the way you want it to. If so, you can relax my rating a little bit. If not, if you are not forgiving of extreme, I don't want to say imbalance, but let's call it luck, swinginess. If you are unforgiving of that, if you do not want to house rule, if you want a game that feels punchier, quicker, that doesn't lumber to an ultimate end goal, then I don't necessarily recommend this one. And it's playing in a crowded field anyway. There's a lot of big exploration, miniatures kind of games like this. Maybe not with this cool setting, but there's plenty of them. So for me, this is going to come in at a 6 out of 10. I want to rate it higher. I just don't, I can't with the punishing, loosey-goosey feel of it all. Just too lucky and too long for me to rate it higher than that. That's basically it. So 6 out of 10 from me for Waste Knights 2nd edition. Here's the thing. This is one of the ones that I give a 6 to that I absolutely know I'm going to keep playing. So take from that what you will, okay? But yeah, this is a world I want to live in a little bit more, maybe after I change some of the rules to fit my tastes a little bit better. So that's going to do it, folks. Thanks very much for checking this out with me. My name is Z Garcia. I'm going to see you on the next one.